There is an uncomfortable paradox lying at the bottom of the sea. A ship goes down off a Greek island, wood collapses, bronze corrodes, ceramic breaks, and yet, among the ordinary wreckage, something survives that should not be there. Not a jewel, not a statue, not a weapon, a machine, small enough to hold in your arms, complex enough to make the mind hesitate. We are told the ancient world was brilliant, yes, but also limited, bound to simple tools, slow calculation, human memory, wax tablets, counting boards. And then this object appears in the story like a wrong note, a dense cluster of gears, teeth cut with patience, ratios that imply intention. A device that seems to remember cycles the way a temple remembers a calendar. A box that turns the sky into motion you can hold. Official language tries to soften it. They call it a curiosity, an outlier, a one-off marvel. They call it, carefully, the first analog computer. But the artifact does not feel like a first. A first is clumsy. A first is loud with experimentation. A first leaves obvious mistakes. This does not. Even in broken fragments, it carries discipline. As if the maker already knew the grammar of gears, as if the hands that cut those teeth had cut others before, as if there was already a tradition, and we are only seeing a shard of it. Here is the question history avoids because it is too quiet. Who taught them to think this way? Because gears are not only metal, they are a way of thinking. To build gears is to believe that time can be divided, that the heavens move in repeatable steps, that a cycle can be turned into a number, that a number can be turned into a wheel, and that a wheel can carry knowledge forward, even when the knower is gone. In a pre-modern mind, that is not technology. That is ritual made mechanical. Look at the setting. A shipwreck is not a library. It is a crossing point, a transfer of goods, of objects, of stories, of craft. So why was such a device traveling? Was it a tool for navigation, a teaching instrument, a prestige object for a patron, a portable shrine of time, and if it existed, intact enough to be shipped? How many others existed that did not survive the salt? The sea keeps what land forgets, but land also keeps secrets of its own: fire, war, rebuilding, records that grow thin where questions grow heavy. So, we will not rush to conclusions. We will stay with what can be seen. A box of gears pulled from an ancient wreck, yet a sophistication that seems to arrive already mature. A silence in the historic record that feels disproportionate. Because when a civilization can place the heavens inside a handheld machine, the question is not only what they knew, it is what else they once built that did not make it to the surface. Begin with the teeth. Not the myth around the object, not the headlines. The teeth. Because a gear is a promise that one turn will always meet another turn the same way. To make that promise in bronze, you need more than strength. You need repeatability. And repeatability is never casual. Picture the workshop that must have existed. Not a single genius in a corner, but benches, jigs, measuring cords, templates cut from wood or metal, files that bite slowly, stones for smoothing. A way to hold a disc perfectly still while hands shape each tooth. Even if the tools are simple, the habit is not. A gear asks the maker to think like a priest of intervals, equal spaces, equal depth, a rhythm that cannot drift. And then there are the ratios. Ratios are where the mind becomes silent. Because a ratio is not decoration, it is intention. A craftsman can carve a beautiful curve by eye, but a ratio must be chosen, and chosen again, confirmed by test, corrected, kept. That means there was a practice of checking. You do not cut dozens of interacting teeth and hope they will cooperate. You test, you listen, you feel resistance, you adjust. This is the texture of a living tradition. Now, consider the box itself. A mechanism like this is not meant to be admired on a shelf. It is meant to be handled, turned, reset, carried. So it needs plates to hold the gears in line, pins to keep axles true, bearings that endure friction, a casing that protects but also allows access. That is not a toy. It is an instrument, and instruments belong to places where knowledge is kept in use, not only in books, in hands. In the ancient world, craft knowledge often traveled like a family name, a master to an apprentice, a workshop to a port to a patron's household, a patron to a temple calendar keeper, a calendar keeper to the next generation. When you see a complex mechanism in a shipwreck, you are seeing a clue of that travel, because ships carry what is valuable enough to risk, and the cargo tells you what the age respected: bronze statues, fine glass, luxury goods, and this, a machine that encodes time. Now set it beside the official story. We are told advanced gearing was rare, that it belonged to much later centuries, that it took a long climb to reach such precision. Yet here is a device that behaves like a mature branch, not a seed. So, we should ask the older kind of question: what else did the same hands build? Because a gear maker does not wake up as a gear maker. He is trained, and training implies demand, repeated commissions, a market for precision, a culture that rewards exactness. Where is that culture in the ruins we visit? We find temples aligned to the sun, stones set to seasons, cities planned by axes. But the workshops of precision rarely survive as monuments. Wood rots, small tools vanish, records burn. So, the machine remains out of place like a surviving bone of an animal we no longer remember. Not proof, not conclusion, just pressure. The kind that makes the mind return again and again to the same quiet thought. This object was not made in isolation. It came from a world of practiced hands. Now, place it in the rhythm of its time. Not our time, not laboratories, not modern schools. Its time. A world where the sky was not background, it was law. Seasons told you when to sow, moons told you when to sail, stars told you when to hold festivals, when to fast, when to begin a civic year, when a ruler's legitimacy should be displayed beneath the right heaven. In such a world, keeping time was not convenience, it was authority. So, a machine that can track cycles is not merely clever, it is political, religious, social. It is a portable declaration that the heavens are orderly, and that someone understands the order. And that is why the most important question is not, could they build it? They did. The question is, who needed it? Because no society pours this much craft into a device without purpose. Bronze is expensive, skilled time is expensive, precision is the rarest currency of all. So, imagine the likely homes for such an instrument. A temple precinct where a calendar is maintained with ceremony, a scholar's circle where young men learn to see cycles as harmonies, a wealthy patron's household where prestige is measured by what one can display as knowledge, a captain's desk where the sky is consulted before crossing open water. Any of these could be true, but all of them share one requirement: a lineage of instruction, a tradition that teaches hands to cut gears, and minds to choose ratios. And here we reach the silence again. Because if this tradition existed, it was not small. It would have needed supply, metal, tools, apprentices, proof that the work mattered. Yet what survives of that tradition in the public story is thin. A few names, a few references, and then a long gap, as if the thread was cut. And cut threads are common in history. Libraries burn, empires fall, workshops are dismantled, craft families scatter. And when the chain breaks, later generations look back and say, impossible. Not because it was impossible, but because the steps are missing. This is the most sobering contrast. Ancient permanence is often stone, temples, theaters, walls, but ancient fragility is often knowledge, especially knowledge that lives in hands. A gear is precise, but a gear maker is mortal. And a society can lose the habit of precision faster than it can lose a column. So, perhaps the device is not ahead of its time. Perhaps it is a survivor of a time that did not survive, a remnant of a school of craft that was once normal enough to ship, normal enough to repair, normal enough to use without wonder. And if that is so, another question forms quietly behind the first. If we only found this because the sea kept it, what did the land erase? Not through drama, through replacement, new rulers, new languages, new calendars, new ways of explaining the sky, and the old instrument becomes useless or dangerous or simply misunderstood. It is remelted, buried, lost, until one wreck gives it back to us in fragments. So we end where we began, with a paradox that remains calm but heavy, a small box, a storm of gears, a disciplined intelligence hidden inside bronze, a machine that suggests a world of trained hands, and a tradition that history struggles to keep in view.